Welcome back to another episode of Kicking It with Coach Red, where we bring you all the news, stories, takes, and opinions about your favorite teams from the Pacific North, fresh from the good to the bad to the Mariners.
The sweet, sweet Mariners, baby. We're back.
The Mariners talk is back. We kind of planned on two episodes this week, a Mariners episode and a Seahawks episode. We're gonna let a little bit more time uh settle on the Mariners. You got a lot of action going on in the NFL. They get their new offensive coordinator, some other key additions and subtractions from the coaching staff. So it's going to be interesting to see here coming up what the roster looks like. Little bit more time for that to pan out. And we haven't been able to talk Mariners for a while, so here we are. All right, before we dive into that, I wanted to tell you a little bit about us. If you're looking for a guy that is emerging from the baseball hibernation, just like all the Mariners players, and reporting, I'm not going to Arizona, but I'm hoping that these takes heat up just like the Cactus League Sun will heat up the hearts of our players before the WBC. It's me, your boy, Coach Red. You can find me on X at the real Coach Red, on Instagram at the real underscore Coach Red, TikTok at the real Coach Red. Also find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and leave a comment or two. And if you're looking for a guy that is going to talk a lot more highly about the left-handed hitters and pitchers compared to the right-handed ones because he is an armist, it is Kane.
I wouldn't go that far. That's just plain rude. Yes, I'm Kane. You can find me at Twitter, Kane2406, TikTok, Kane0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Balls. Do it, freaking do it.
All right, there's the sound came back in a little bit more. I'm a little quiet there for part of it, but we'll be
Yeah.
all right.
Let me adjust my microphone. There, that might work. Yeah, but it's Mariners time.
So um the biggest news that we've really yet to cover in depth is talking about a lefty hitter that was acquired. So
You mean the
somebody
true?
somebody named Gaines about to get bricked up for lefties. Brendan Donovan, they finally completed the trade after will they, won't they, all off
Apparently,
season.
all this prospect haul that it was gonna cost.
So inbound to the Mariners was Brendan Donovan. Outbound from the Mariners, you saw Drangelo St. J,
Yep.
Ben Williamson,
Kind of sucks, but had to be done.
and
Type Pete.
Ty Pete. Um,
That would
Ben
hurt the
Williamson.
most.
Ben Williamson goes to the Rays. The Rays send out competitive balance B pick back to the Cardinals along with outfielder Ledbetter. So, what's that look before we talk about incoming player and Brendan Donovan? What's that look like on the way out? And the take that I had, which I think holds a lot of weight,
Okay.
when you look at the three players that left the Mariners,
Okay.
Drangelo St. J, first round pick 2 years ago, and switch pitcher coming out of college. They don't love the left hand stuff as much as the right. Doesn't play as much. The walk numbers were higher and the K numbers were down compared to from the right side. They were turning him into just a righty starter. Then maybe, throw a little lefty in the bullpens, maybe be able to look at him as a reliever to do those on off days, bullpens. Okay. Right. But with the progression of Ryan Sloan
Oh boy.
and basically just stepping into Kate Anderson, it put Sinjay as number 3 in the prospect. And
Yeah.
realistically, kind of, I believe that when you look at timetables to the big leagues, that Sloan, who was coming out of high school, compared to Sinjay, who spent time at Texas A&M, right? I think that Sloan and
That or
St. J,
Mississippi State.
yeah, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, they're about the same color scheme, right? They're the
Yeah.
same colors. Um, but I believe that Sloan and St. J were on the same timeline on when they were going to be ready for the bigs. And I think that Kate Anderson is slightly ahead of both of them.
Yeah.
So when you really look at how the Mariners' top end rotation looks, you get news that Logan Evans is going to miss the year, getting Tommy John with the UCL injury.
They don't plan to take Emerson Hancock out of the bullpen either.
Uh, I'd be surprised. But they also went and got some veteran guys that can do long relief and have starting capability.
Mhm.
So when you look at that whole thing, Sinjay always seemed like the guy who some teams could look at him with a lot of high upside, but I think that with the last couple of drafts and really looking at the progression of Ryan Sloan, that out of your pitching prospects, Sinjay made the most sense to trade
Yes.
and just finding that team and that prospect haul that matched up to make a good deal happen.
Mm-hmm.
We'll save Ty Pete for last because I know that you
Love
really
Type
like Ty
Pete.
Pete, but
Love Type Pete. You watched him live, dude.
I did and didn't do a whole lot in that game. So I'll get to a lot of things at that point. But when you talk about Ben Williamson, after he got sent down last year, the power numbers upticked. But what you also have to look at is traditionally a lot of hitters have hit pretty well in the PCL. It's
Yep.
it's a lot more forgiving than the double A down in Arkansas can be. uh, Even if Ben Williamson still had a few more homers in AAA, a few more doubles that were coming through, you're seeing that against AAA competition. And what you get out of Ben Williamson at the big league level is a gold glove caliber third baseman that is a singles merchant. You don't have the walk numbers that you'd like to see for a guy if he's just going to be getting on base, and the strikeout numbers were high in his sample size last year.
I
When you look
mean,
at where the Mariners sit right now, they've done some damage in being able to curb some of that strikeout. Julio's strikeout numbers were down last year, right?
mhm.
You bring in Brendan Donovan, which we'll talk about more at length, who is a low strikeout guy.
True
But
leadoff hitter, right?
and same thing with Josh Naylor. Josh Naylor, from what you were getting at first base, a lot less strikeouts than you were getting from Locklear, Rowdy Telez, Luke
Right.
Rayleigh, right? And so, but with Ben Williamson, you do have power in center field with Julio, and you have power in left field. You have some good power behind the dish and at first base, but another position that if you're not going to be hitting for a high average, you need to supplement that with power is third base. And you weren't really going to be getting that either way.
And if you have Ben Williamson on this team, Brendan Donovan or not, right, it blocks people in the future, right? AKA Cold Emerson or someone else,
Well,
right?
if you're making the play for a Brendan Donovan type, you aren't going to be sitting there with Colt Emerson, Cole Young, and Ben Williamson on the team, right? There's
Exactly.
not enough at bats to go around. And I saw Colt Emerson live as well. I thought he was a good but not great player when I saw him. I didn't necessarily see the prospect hype, but as soon as he kept moving up, he kept getting better and better and better. Like he demolished double A, demolished his short stint in triple A, and was on the taxi squad for the playoff run.
I
If
mean,
they're going to really give him
he's
that runway to take over third base at some point and then play Brendan Brendan Donovan, my other thing is the closest thing that with how his bat does play, even though he's not great against lefties, but
just is
still
what it is.
serviceable.
Yeah.
Uh, Closest thing to a super utility that you've had that can actually play 6, 7 days a week than that you've had since Mark McMore, right?
There. I
Like,
thought you were gonna throw Debo out there, to be
no,
honest.
he was a little more hot and cold, but like True can play multiple positions and play
And
almost
produce.
every day.
Yeah.
That
But it
is what
also
Brendan Donovan
allows,
does.
like, yeah, Jerry DePoto at FanFest said, like, he has had talks with Cold Emerson, and the runway's clear. It's his for the taking, and
Exactly.
and how he ended last year, I have him on my opening day roster. I mean,
I
that's how
think
much hype I have for him, dude.
I think it was also pretty telling that I think Ben Williamson was on the squad for the first playoff series.
I
I know
believe
he was on the
so.
taxi. I think he was up for that because they were in the mode of Naylor having the kid, right? Or maybe it was the
Yes.
second go around where they brought him up because Gino was taking secondary reps at first base to fill in there if needed. And then if Gino's off third, then you need someone to be able to play third. But when you look at the perfect time for Ben Williamson was to be a late inning defensive replacement if you were up in a game for Gino, and that never happened. So you really looked at that window shrinking for him,
Mm.
especially with how it all played out.
And
But
I get it. Like you trade for Gino, why does Ben Williamson need to be on the major league roster, right? I, it's tough, and it's the question is they were going to upgrade at third base in the offseason. That was the plan from the get go. And if all it took was sending him to the Rays for the Rays to jump on board, my buddy, hold on, word for word, my buddy texted me the day that it happened.
he's a Rays fan.
And he is a Rays fan, and he goes, "Isn't Williamson supposed to be really good?" I said, "Defensively, dot dot dot," and he's a singles merchant. He's like, I just saw he just hit under 300 the last couple of years in the minors." It's like, yeah, he shreds minor league pitching.
Yeah. And I hope that Ben does great. I think the thing that makes
Yeah,
it tough is he's going to the Rays that have a fringe MVP candidate in Junior Caminero locking down third base. So you're really looking at him to turn into a super utility guy. And the
yeah,
big news was like in his professional career, he's played second base and third base and shortstop. And I'm like, no, he hasn't. He's
he
played
played
third
third.
base.
Yeah,
In college, he was a shortstop until his junior year, but
right.
um, the glove will play, right? The glove will play. He's got a hose. He's got great range for a third
And
baseman. I
and
think he
and,
could be serviceable as a shortstop for a game or two. He's not going to be an everyday guy.
and in Tampa, well, he might be second baseman too. They might throw him at second. Tampa has this weird way of just having weird guys click there.
Jose
And
Caballero,
right,
the
exactly.
perfect example. That guy
Ben
was a starting shortstop.
Ben Williamson might be good there, and I hope he is. I really do.
Agreed. I hope nothing for the best for that. And another guy that we hope nothing for the
Uh,
best is Ty Pete.
Ty
And
Pete,
but you get out of Ty Pete, he was part of the big three, right? You had two first rounders and a second rounder. I believe he was your second first rounder that you took.
yep.
It was Colt Emerson, and then it was Ty Pete, and then it was Johnny Formello. Formello and Ty Pete both dealt with some injuries in the minors early on. Ty Pete dealt with
There's a
it.
shortstop coming out too, right?
Yes, he was a shortstop coming out. He ended up getting a pretty nasty knee injury sliding into second, which hampered his time. Um, which then once he got healthy again, Colt Emerson,
Yeah.
both
Okay.
shortstops. Colt Emerson was getting the reps and single at shortstop, so they moved Ty P to the outfield, which he's rangy, he's toolsy. The power numbers haven't really clicked, and his strikeout numbers are very high, even for single A.
Hmm.
So he lost some luster in the prospect rankings within the Mariners because you've seen some guys that have progressed up and exceeded expectation. Formello's been one of them. Formello's just been blasting everywhere he goes. And I
No,
think he got up to double A
he's
last
a
year.
dog, dude. He's a dog.
So when you look at timetables and prospect pass, and you can never have enough depth, right? But
Right.
you look at the current outfield, you've got Randy through this year, you have Julio locked down for the foreseeable future. You have more time with Robles. You got 2 more years of Robles. You've got Luke Rayleigh, who's at minimum through this year. You got Dom Canzone, who's got a bunch of time left. But
Mhm.
when you look at the prospects who are ahead of Type Pete, when you're looking at straight outfield guys, you've got Victor Labadera, who has outshone he's worked his way up and played very well at AAA, but he's older than these other guys. So he finds himself lower on the prospect rankings, but has played at a very high level. You've
Mhm.
got guys that you picked up in other trades like Rylan Thomas, who had some play in the major league level last year, who's sitting in AAA. And when you look at your big prospects, you've got Johnny Formello and Laz Montez, right?
Yes.
Eventually, I think Laz Montez moves to more of a DH first base role just due to size. But early on, he still has a hose. He looks a little funky out there at times, but the dude has an absolute cannon and is built like a brick shit house, if you will. So
Yeah. I just loved the idea of the energy that you would get out of a Ty Pete Julio Rodriguez outfield. I think the vibes would be crazy out there. I just thought that Ty Pete was electric, right? He had too much swag to just kind of keep to himself, it seemed.
his personality was awesome, and he does
Yeah.
have a viral clip from before he was drafted where he was playing wiffle ball in the backyard with his little brother, and absolutely hit a
Took
pimp
him
job off
yard.
him. Oh yeah, big
Oh
time.
yeah. And I just respect the hell out of Ty Pete, man. Sad to see him gone, but I'll gladly take Brendan Donovan for it seems like still nothing at this point. Like,
And that's the big thing is we talked about it a little bit before the podcast start, and prospects are called prospects for a reason because you do not know what they are going to be once they hit the major league level. You look at Jared Kelnick and Julio Rodriguez.
Kyle Lewis as
The year
well.
the year before, Kyle Lewis is more an injury, but I'm just talking about straight like prospect rank. So the year that Kelnick gets brought up and Julio's the year behind him, right?
Mhm.
Before that year that Julio comes up, they're both top 5 ranked prospects or top 6 ranked prospects. Julio Rodriguez has multiple, who was ranked below Jared Kelnick, has multiple years and being in the MVP conversation. He has a rookie of the year. He's been at the heart of this revival. And Jared Kelnick, unfortunately, hasn't clicked for him at the major league level.
No.
He breaks with the Mariners, gets traded as part of a salary dump of Marco Gonzalez to the Braves, up and down, mainly down there. Playing a lot of AAA and signs a minor league deal because they cut him loose and signs a minor league deal with the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah.
So
And it's just tough. I mean, you know, we all had high hopes for Jared Kelenic, especially 'cause he came over in the Cano deal. And the
he
big
was a
stab in the
centerpiece.
yeah,
And
the big stab in the heart was Edwin Diaz in that trade, right?
yeah,
Like,
and that's why prospects are prospects until they do something at the big league level, right? And that's why
yeah.
looking at guys, when you're looking at the window the Mariners are in right now, getting a Brendan Donovan type player with multiple years of club control, right? He's got 2 more years of club control, and he was an all-star last year. He's been a high on base guy that hasn't fallen really. And what you gave up was Sinjay probably maxes out. Like on a bad team, he could be a 1 or a 2, but on a good team, he's probably looking at a 3, 4, or 5 spot in the
Yeah.
rotation.
And it also, you look at like one other pitcher in that draft. It was Trey Savage, right? It came up big in the playoffs for him last year. And the fact that Sinjay still wasn't there, he was in single A for a while, and then he got bumped up shortly this year into double A. And I don't think he made it to triple A yet.
No,
So it's really tough for a guy who went to college for like 3 years.
yeah. And then you look at Ben Williamson, who I think on a bad team, he gets everyday playing time and has the shot to win a gold glove. On a good team, he at best is a bench role player,
Yes.
late inning defensive replacement. And with Ty Pete, He's a guy that has high strikeout numbers, but he's the ultimate lottery ticket. But that lottery ticket is 4+ years down the road. When you look at all those timetables, Sinche wasn't going to help you this year. Maybe next year, maybe, and that's a big maybe.
Yeah, you might get Kate Anderson and Ryan Sloan at some point this year.
I'm just talking about these guys' timetables. You got
Sure.
Ben Williamson, who would be an okay piece for you to have right now, and Ty Pete, that's 4 years away. To go get a guy that is a top 10 guy at second base position. Like we've said, it's not difficult to do right now. Second base is probably the toughest spot to find high quality players. Like, I don't think you can name me five that are like surefire all-star today, all year players at the second base position across Major League Baseball.
It's
I think month to month that Brendan Donovan could be a top five guy. There's other times where he's a top seven guy, right?
sure.
But there's not there's not the Robinson Cano type player.
Sure.
And then you've got a young Marcus Simeon, right? Right now you have an old Marcus Simeon, right? So you didn't have that for a while there. There was a ton of big time players at the second base position. And that has seemed to wane a little bit as
Been
we've
like
gone along.
yeah, it has been like that for a handful of years now, where it's like, oh, you're kind of falling off at shortstop, we're gonna throw you at second.
And then what you get out of Brendan Donovan, it'll be exciting to see. His defensive metrics haven't been the highest, but he gets walked at a fair amount of clip. He
Yep.
strikes out 10 or less% is the range that he's hovered in the last 3 years. He
And it's a guy that you can put at the beginning of the lineup. You put in front of Julio, you put in front of Cal, just to get the bases moving, right?
it's
And
nice
getting
to
people
not
on.
have a power hitting Randy Arozarena hitting leadoff.
100%. I mean, I Randy probably hit sixth in this lineup.
I think he probably hits five, if I'm being honest.
Josh Naylor's probably hitting fifth.
Who's hitting four?
Uh,
If
I
your
don't think
answer
it's
is Cal
Randy.
Raleigh, who's hitting two?
No, Cal's hitting three.
Julio's hitting two.
Yeah,
Naylor's hitting four. You
yeah.
might you might have Randy hitting four against the lefty. Those two are probably flip flopping at 4 or 5. Then you're getting into in your let's call it your at that point six spot some
JP's
combination
nine.
of Dom Canzone, Luke Rayleigh, or um,
Victor Robles,
Victor Robles. Then in
your second baseman, and then
Cole
uh,
Young.
yeah, and then JP9.
Yeah.
Okay, okay,
It's kind of what I envision the lineup to look like on a pretty regular basis, right?
yeah,
So Brendan Donovan, he brings a table setting to the table and ultimate clubhouse guy. This is a guy that was not highly regarded. He was never a big prospect guy, but he just worked his tail off and got there. And that's kind of a lot of like some of the guys that we've grown to love. And a lot of Cardinals fans were pretty upset about this trade and because their team hasn't been great. You had aging veterans the last couple of years on that team with Arenado, Goldsmith, and you even had throw in like Lars Newbar, who can be fun, but at the same time they all gravitated towards Brendan Donovan. And when you look at what the Mariners have done well is have those utility type guys that really tug at your heartstrings because they play their heart out. But also, this is a guy that brings a lot more production to the table than a lot of those utility guys in the past, right? We still think fondly of Willie Bloomquist and the Sean O'Malley's and the Dylan
yeah,
Moore, who were kind of those big time utility type guys, even a little bit of like Jose Caballero and Leo Rivas and more, somewhat recent years too.
mm,
Brendan Donovan can do it at a high level at multiple positions, like a demo in the infield, in the outfield. He's probably not going to play shortstop for you. If JP needs a breather, that's where you're going to see like Cole Young, Cole Emerson come into play. But he's a guy that can consistently hit at the top of your lineup against righties. You could augment that slightly if you wanted to and bump down the lineup against lefties.
yep.
And it's going to be interesting to really see what you get out of, let's say, like a Cole Emerson, right? Or Cole Young this year.
Mm.
Cole Cole Young has had a little bit, he's been a little bit more
I think it's a little streaky.
platoony
Yeah.
comparative to what Colt Emerson has shown throughout his career in the minors. So it'll be interesting to see because if Colt hits lefties at a good clip, you can very much see him jumping, catapulting to the top of the lineup. Who
I
knows?
mean, and then we also got a Cole Young that also crushed one of the furthest balls I've ever seen mashed at T-Mobile Park. I mean, uh, it's going to be a really exciting year, and I'm glad the spring training's coming up. Like, has is here, and everybody's kind of like reporting and stuff. All the stuff that's you've seen on Donovan so far has been very good. Uh, I think there's a different air around this team this year, right? Cal Raleigh, couple guys, I think they spent their off seasons here, and
Oh yeah, a ton did, and they bought into a lot of the local
the
stuff. They were,
yeah,
you had, I think it was George Kirby, Cal Raleigh, and Brian Wu went to the Super Bowl with Adam Ray. You know,
uh, Josh Naylor and Brian Wu were also there,
yep,
but Brian Wu would not be caught dead in any Seahawks gear. He was very neutral because I think uh
he's from the
I think he's from the
SoCal,
Bay.
might be the Bay, might be SoCal, but it it's good to see the camaraderie that we saw get built with this team. And what I also think when you look at this team as a whole, you really did need that Brendan Donovan type. When you
Mm-hmm.
look at the guys that aren't on this team, you lose Gino and Jorge Polanco as your two big names out of this lineup. And I think that Brendan Donovan doesn't give you as much pop, but gives you a lot more on base than
Mm-hmm.
what you saw out of Polanco.
I
And
mean,
when
Polo was just great last year, though.
agreed, but I do think that your
Just get a little,
average and
yeah.
doubles will still be there that you were getting from Polanco. The home run numbers aren't going to be there, and he's not going to be counted on to drive in as many runs as Polo did. But his job is going to be to set the table. The other part is when you look at Gino, a lot of his big numbers came in Arizona. And when
Yes.
he came back to the Mariners, he's cooling off a little bit. He still, like we said, is had very clutch moments in the postseason. He had a lot of home runs, but it was really home run or strikeout for a good chunk of the season.
But he
And
didn't get to 60
and
or 50 or whatever.
when you look at what some combination, if you combine the two of Cole Young and Colt Emerson, are the powers numbers going to be on pace with what Gino did the whole year? No, they're not.
No.
But what what you will see is probably better defensive numbers compared between the two of
Mhm.
them. The strikeout numbers will be less. I think the walk numbers will be slightly up than what you got with Gino. For how dangerous Gino was, the walk numbers still weren't there, even though how much he was putting the ball out of the park. And when you really look
Mhm.
at his stint as Mariner, which I want to reiterate, I'm not discounting what he did in clutch moments. That's going to be hard to replace. Same with Polo.
He had a whole other reason of being on this team too, and it was being the glue, being the vibe, being the one that is just always bringing it to the dugout, right?
And I think that having Josh Naylor on squad all year is going to help with that.
Oh, it's gonna be
And
so fun.
from every indication, it seems like Brendan Donovan is that hard nose. Like it's kind of what we heard about Polo coming in. Mitch Garver had said like Polo is one of the best teammates that I've ever had. But I do think that Brendan Donovan is a different style of leader, right?
Mhm.
And different style of clubhouse guy, where he is the guy that came from low prospect rankings and just grinded his way up and has carved out a very good major league
Yeah,
career. And I a guy that's not going to rest on his laurels. That's going to be the guy that you're going to see laying out for an unplayable ball in the ninth inning in April of a game against the Pirates, right? It's not going
and
you're going to see it all of the time.
I just think that
It's
like
like watching Luke Rayleigh run to first base. Doesn't matter when it is. Luke Rayleigh is sprinting to first base.
Yeah.
There's a weak ground ball. Luke Rayleigh is out of the box every single time. And that's what I think you're going to get with Brendan Donovan.
And with Cal, right, coming into this year and being in Seattle for a good chunk of the off season, right? He's had a lot of conversations, it seems like, with Mike McDonald and kind of what that mentality brought with the Super Bowl run. And I know that he's talked about like wanting to try to implement that in the clubhouse, right? And I think they're almost there because this is a tight knit group. You're almost running it back with the same squad, right? Minus a few pieces here and there. But I just think the close knit, like family type setting that this team will have is going to be a magical run.
The other thing that miffed me a little bit during the frustrations before the Donovan deal was, well, they're just running it back with a team for the most part that, you lost at, for the most part. Polanco was already gone to the Mets, and it's like, what's going to happen with Gino type of thing. And you're looking at there and people are like, well, they're just running it back. How are they going to do better than they did last year? And my counter to that is, you didn't have Josh Naylor for a full year at first base. Did you get some things that helped win you a couple of games with Rowdy Tellez? Sure. But you also had a few games where Rowdy Tellez didn't help anything. So during the regular season, could could having Josh Naylor for a full season outside of Josh Naylor for a couple of months equate to a couple of more wins to put you in a better position for the postseason? Because
Right.
if the Mariners, when you also look at this, their starting staff had more injuries than they've had in years
Mm-hmm.
and more time lost. And then those guys trying to get up to speed and getting effective. And some of their arms kind of wearing down by the end of the year because of the up and down nature of what is baseball. And with coming back from injury, trying to ramp up quick and then having time off for the All-Star break and getting back, dog days, you're winning a bunch of games, trying to go out there and give the team everything you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where I think that with this team, if you can position yourself to be fighting for a number one seed and getting that first round off, giving your guys a little bit more time, that should help bode a lot better for a deeper postseason run. And the starting staff is the same. And you have, I think there was some word, I didn't see exactly what it said, but Bryce Miller's arm wasn't feeling 100%. People are like, why didn't he do something? I think they were saying, this is just the time where you don't talk about every little ding and dent.
Right. And here's the thing, right? Best postseason pitcher was Bryce Miller. I mean,
You're
had
going to,
had a
like,
very bad regular season, but he showed up when it mattered,
was also
right?
injured for a good chunk of the regular season and kind of
And he
pushed
fought through
himself to
it.
get to injury even further because of how injured the rest of the starting staff was. So
Right.
when you look at Brian Woo's breakout year, all indications that he's 100%.
And big shout out to our big Brian Woohoo for I know he got invited to play for WBC and he turned it down because he wanted to focus on the season and keep his pitch count where it needs to be. That's
Agreed.
great mentality.
And Brian Woo's coming in healthy. Logan Gilbert's coming in healthy. Logan Gilbert still looked at as the number one starter for this team, even when Brian Woo was
I
healthy
mean,
going into the
George
playoffs.
George came in healthy. Like,
And you're looking at, realistically, Luis Castillo kind of slotting into that 4 or 5 spot this year, which is kind of
mm,
what we envisioned for the squad, right?
mm,
So when you look at that, and then when you look at the bullpen being relatively the same, they brought in some guys like a Dane Dunning. You brought in, the name escapes me, the lefty we got from the Dodgers.
Ferrero, I believe
No,
his name.
his name's
Uh,
Ferrero.
I thought the lefty we got from
No, I wasn't
the
talking the
Nationals.
no, I'm talking about the minor league invite guy from the Dodgers.
Oh, no
That wasn't
clue.
minor league. We claimed him off waivers, but no, Jose Farrar, who's gonna give you high octane stuff from the left
Ooh.
side with the big sweeping slider. or sweeper, and being able to bring in another power arm lefty instead of like Caleb Ferguson, I think is going to help out quite a bit.
Mhm.
And I think that they do have some good arms in the pile of the pitching lab that they might be able to unlock a few more things and have those guys throw some meaningful innings. Are you
Can't
going to
imagine.
see Jesus Bizardo replicate what he did last year? Are you going to be able to see Carlos Vargas replicate what he did last year? I'm not
Yeah.
sure, but the Mariners, and you look at some other guys. Troy Taylor last year was dealing with injury,
Mhm.
who was absolutely fire when he, came
But he
back.
got called up.
He
He was
did,
awesome.
but then he went back down. Yeah, when he got called up, he was nails. And then last year, dealing with the injury, gets sat down for the rest of the year. But then when you also look at some other guys, like it's awesome, and I'll give this guy his flowers for taking as a pitcher taking time to go play for the WBC because like Gabe Spire 100% earned his spot on that
Yes,
team to go ahead and
sir.
be able to represent. But one person
Love
that I'll
that.
also give his flowers to is Matt Brash, who decided not to play for Canada this year because of the tax that it put on his arm and kind of led to his overuse, which then ended up him missing significant time. Matt
Yeah.
Brash, like Gabe Spire, was a guy that was outcast by a bullpen in Kansas City that was terrible and comes in and is now the high leverage lefty for a team that is a couple innings away from making their first World Series appearance. Would I like to not see his arm get a little bit more taxed in the WBC? Sure. But if there's one guy that I
Who
think
knows if he even gets
deserves it,
much time?
but the guy that deserves it, right? It's a
Oh,
guy like Gabe Spire
100%.
because I think that he is underappreciated league wide.
He's
But
so awesome. And I hope he shoves it on the big stage, dude.
so when you look at their starting staff, you don't anticipate going through as much injury as you did last year because
Yeah.
every single pitcher at some point outside of Luis Castillo, surprisingly, missed time due to injury.
No.
And then you look at the bullpen where you bring back all of your major pieces and then insert a guy that you're hoping is what you thought Gregory Santos was going to be, right? This is a guy with a big power arm. This is a guy that has a little bit more service time than Gregory Santos had before we traded for him. And it's a guy that the Mariners have tried to get multiple times, right? Now the timing is right. They ended up having to give Harry Ford away to go get him, which
Which,
I think that when we talking about timetables, Cal Raleigh is going to be catching a lot of games this year still. And I don't think that Harry Ford's defense was at that point. I think a better timetable is the catcher you just drafted, who is already in your top 10, and Luke Stevenson, before any of the trades, who everyone is looking very highly on him as a Cal
yep.
Raleigh type and probably a little bit more of a plus defender because he did so in college before making the jump straight from high school, like Harry Ford did. So
Mhm.
you feel more confident in the sample size you've seen against higher level competition early on. So by the time Luke Stevenson finds his way towards the MLB roster, at that point, you might feel a little bit more comfortable with allowing Cal to have a few more DH days because you're not taking his bat out of the lineup and
Mhm.
being able to feel confident enough with the bat and the defense of a Luke Stevenson. That timetable doesn't work for the next 1 to 2 years because Cal Raleigh still in his prime is coming off an MVP type season. You know that Cal wants to be out there almost every single day. And being able to just find guys that you can plug and play one day a week, most likely, sometimes two, and really set the table and let Cal continue to lead this team. I think once Cal, 2 years down the road, be like, all right, I'm good with sitting 2 days behind the dish. I don't need to be back there every single day. Like these dings and dents are adding up. I think that
Yeah.
time when we talk about timetables, anything that they did this offseason does nothing to shorten their window. I think it only extends their window because you're bringing
Right.
guys into places like a Donovan that can allow Cole Young and Cole Emerson, even throw in Ryan Bliss, who's coming
Yeah.
back from a torn pec, right? Or bicep.
I will tell you, dude, I think they did amazingly to kick off free agency and bringing back Naylor, and they got him at a bargain deal. and it's just crazy that like he's bought in so much, and like the dude just bleeds Seattle, it seems, right? He's always repping something from a different sport in Seattle. And like having him, as you said, in the locker room all year instead of just a couple months, I think is going to do wonders. I think these guys spent a lot of time together in the off season as much as they could. Uh, and you're going to see that translate to the field, I think. So it's going to be good.
It's a tight knit group, and you're bringing back a lot of guys that felt like they were a little bit more the heartbeat of the team, right? You still have
Hmm.
Leo Rivas hanging around. Does it hurt losing some of the leadership in Jorge Polanco and Gino?
Of
Yes, it does.
course.
But you also have Julio, who's a year older, Cal coming off that season, who's going to have even more clout in that locker room. Josh Naylor is well regarded. You still have JP on roster, who's one of the best leaders that this team has had, and people still turn to him as a leader, even when his numbers are down, right? And what you do is you add more versatility to this lineup. That's the biggest thing. And it's something that the Mariners have loved to do. And I think with Polanco, the knee injury really caught up to him, right? It was very tough to watch Polanco even play second base.
Yeah,
Like they were like, we're gonna play him at third base. And then that was a couple of games like, no, we're not.
that's what I was glad Ben Williamson was on the major league roster because it was nice to see a guy throw across the diamond.
And when you look at, you've seen what Cole Young can do at second base, and like Cole Young has a better arm than Ryan Bliss. He doesn't have the range that Ryan Bliss has because
Oh,
Ryan
Ryan
Bliss
Bliss
is
is
speedy,
just
and Ryan
ooh.
Bliss can get to some balls and still not put as much juice as Cole Young, but he'll get to the ball and can still make a play at first. And I think what you're going to see at, if with Colt and Brendan Donovan at third base is a little bit easier to play range wise than second base. And Donovan has a great out there, but you also get him to work with Perry Hill. And Perry Hill has turned some of these guys into plus defenders. You looked at JP coming up, and, you know, the book on him was uber talented, but he's not a good defender. And Perry Hill helps morph him into a gold glove shortstop.
Right,
And
he's still making plays in a aging uh sometimes hard to watch him play short, but he's still making plays.
he still has a flair for the spectacular. But I think that being able to get Colt Emerson around Perry Hill and getting Brendan Donovan a lot of reps can really help. Because even with Gino, that was the
And
biggest thing on him in Gino's first year, his younger of all the years. The dude looked like a gold glover for 75% of the year. He had the
yeah,
yips a little bit.
and everything Colt Emerson has been this last year, he's been a plus defender at short. I mean, this was the year, the make or break. Hey, are you going to be a shortstop going forward or not? And he made every play like you could ask the kid to make. So there,
Yeah,
his gloves, he's going to be special. He's just going to be
agreed.
special.
And we'll dive more into the buildup of the season, kind of look at what we think original roster is going to be, and kind of what we think lineups are going to be and stuff like that as we get a little bit closer with spring training just getting kicked off. Some of the hitters showing up a little bit early to get prepared for the WBC. Maybe being able to talk about a few of the Mariners in the WBC when we pepper in another Mariners episode will be fun. But we just want to touch on the Mariners in a longer form episode because we give them little bits and sprinkles. But like we said, with Seahawks in the run to the Super Bowl and becoming Super Bowl champs, they deserved all their flowers. And we were late to get to the game on the Seahawks just because of the magical season that the Mariners had. So wanted to give
Yep.
the Mariners their time to shine. And next week we'll talk a little bit more about how the Seahawks team's constructed.
Mhm.
And then we'll be right back into Mariners because, oh man, we are a month and a half away from Mariners
Fixing an
baseball.
itch, dude. Fixing an itch. That's what this is.
Yeah, and sometimes if your fingers are itching to go give a follow, you can
Ooh.
find us over on social media. You can find me, your boy Coach Red, on X at the Real Coach Red, on Instagram at the real underscore Coach Red, TikTok at the real Coach Red. Also find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and leave a comment or two. Kane, where you at?
Find me over on Twitter, Kane2406, TikTok, Kane0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. False. Do it, freaking do it.
And as always, stay fresh.
Stay fresh, peeps.
Peace.